Well, hello once again, fiction lovers, and it's time for a quick chat about setting in fiction. So let's jump into it. All right. So here we go. Hey, look at the special effects, huh? Slick. All right, so like I said, talking about setting in fiction. And so why don't we go ahead and define setting? So we're talking about the environment of a literary work. And this is basically physical place and historical period, both of which combine to create a mood. Okay, another word for that is going to be atmosphere. All right, so here's how setting works. Broadly speaking, where the action occurs and when it occurs will create in the mind of the reader a particular mood or atmosphere. Africa and South America and Europe all suggest different things. Whether you've been there or not, how much you've read about it or not, these things are all going to mean different things, and they're going to mean different things to different people. Okay. However, the writer is making decisions knowing that in general, there are going to be associations that the reader will have with various places. Okay. Same thing occurs with respect to time period. So first century before Common Era, okay, is going to be received differently than, say, 15th century or the late part of the 20th century. Okay. All right, so let's take a look at place, otherwise known as locale, and we'll look at some broad categories. Okay, so think about it. You could think, as I did earlier, talk about a continent, Africa and Europe and so forth. We could talk about a country, specific countries within particular continents. We can think of a state within a particular country, or you could think of a region. Okay, so it could be a region within a country, like the South, the West, the Northwest, the Northeast. Then you could, of course, have a state within that region, and then a region within a state. For example, in Tennessee, East Tennessee, especially Upper East Tennessee, is way different in almost every way from West Tennessee. West Tennessee is super flat. It's Delta country. Upper East Tennessee, you're talking about part of the Appalachian chain, the Great Smoky Mountains. So your climate's going to be different. The dialect of the people speaking there, all these sorts of things are going to be different. Okay. Broader categories might be like a city. Okay. So again, and cities are going to suggest different things to the readership than would other places, smaller places, say like a town, a village, and this sort of thing. Okay. So as you can see here, my photographic image is, this is Switzerland. And so that's going to suggest different things for you than would, say, the Sahara, okay? Saharan Africa, all right? All right, so now as we narrow, we get to things like neighborhood, a particular street, say, within a neighborhood, then narrow even further to a particular house, and then maybe even a school, and depending on elementary school, middle school, high school, university, college, all these things are going to suggest different things to the reader. So this sort of neighborhood, if the writer describes, say a tree-lined street with nicely kept lawns and so forth, you get a very different sort of picture than if we're describing, or the writer is describing something like this street, which is from contemporary Rome, Italy. All right. So in the street that you see in that bottom picture, it's cobblestones. The building materials are different, and things of that nature. Okay. So all these things suggest very different things for the reader, and again, the writer knows this. All right. So think about other locales. So if we're talking about shorelines, now shorelines could be any number of things. We could be talking about the shore of the Mediterranean Sea, the shore of the Atlantic Ocean or the Pacific Ocean. It might even be a shoreline somewhere like, Lake Michigan, or even a smaller lake where the setting is on the shore. So we have connotations again associated with being near bodies of water. Okay, islands. All right. So if you want to create, say, a sense of isolation, then maybe as a writer, you decide to set it on an island. Islands are also, relatively exotic types of places, although, there are islands, say, up in New Hampshire on Lake, Winnipesaukee. Sorry, that just absolutely ran away from me. So you have islands within that lake up there in New Hampshire. Very different idea than you would have in terms of a tropical island. Okay, farms. All right. So is it a cattle farm or something like a ranch? Is it different if we say that it's a farm, say, set in Nebraska where you're growing wheat? It might be a farm that has a whole array of animals, goats and donkeys and things of that nature. Okay, sheep. All right, then we get into rural areas. So maybe we're not necessarily talking about agricultural products that I mentioned before, but maybe just rural places like over here as you start to move, say, north of Memphis, Tennessee, and you start to get into areas where it's not so much that there is agriculture going on as there is just not a density of people. There just aren't a lot of large populated cities up there. Okay, so here's a shot from an island. Very different feel that you would have there if I said it was a Greek island, for example, versus an island in the South Pacific. If it was an island, say, in the Caribbean. Okay, we have all these associations that are different. And then here, we have a shot from a farm. Okay, so as the writer, then I'm going to paint these sorts of pictures, and again, I'm trying to achieve a match between what it is that I'm, the kind of mood that I want to create, the subject matter I'm dealing with, and where I'm going to set it. Okay, so another way to think of things is in terms of setting is time. And so we mean epic. We're talking about a relatively large scale time period. So from my picture here, there's going to be a huge difference if I set the story in 600, like 6th or 7th century before Common Era in Athens, Greece, right, versus 1960s Athens, Greece. Okay, their mode of life is going to be completely different. The way they dress is going to be completely different. Technology, all these sorts of things. Okay, all right. Time of year. So if a story is set in winter, for example, all the associations we have with winter as being the days are the shortest. So we associate darkness with winter. It's cold during winter. We generally don't tend to see, lots of people necessarily in winter. So you might focus on so if I'm writing a story and I want to focus on, say, a small family unit, then, and the Russians are particularly marvelous at doing this sort of thing, setting things in winter, because it's, winter there a lot, depending on where you are, a good part of the year, cold and so forth. So I might want to focus on a warm little cottage or something of that nature to create perhaps a sense of isolation. All right. So in summer, then summer is when everything is in full bloom and all the promise of life and all these sorts of things. Okay. Conversely, when you look at spring, okay, so like the Canterbury Tales, for example, they begin in April. So everyone's just come out of the winter and they're ready to go on pilgrimage together. And so spring suggests, growth and hope, and everything is coming out of the darkness and into the light. Same thing with autumn. Something set in autumn, then we've got images of decline. Okay, the trees the leaves are changing color. They're falling off the trees. Plants are starting to hibernate. Animals are starting to hibernate. Birds are flying south for the winter. So you have all these elements of decline. So if you see that a story is set in a particular season, then again, this is not by accident. It's designed to match the topic at hand, okay? And so then we also have time of day. So if a story starts in the morning, right, then this gives us the all the possibilities again of the day before us. So a spring morning, okay, those two things combined then are going to suggest all kinds of promise. You're looking at images of ascent, you know, things moving up. If it's set in a winter evening or an autumn evening, now you've got these images of decline. The dark is fading out of the sky, and all these sorts of things. Okay, so as I said before, the best writers use all these elements of setting to create a mood that matches the action. So in the things that we're going to be reading, then I want you just to pay close attention to the choices that the writer makes and how those choices then match with the action of the story. Okay. All right. So that's all I've got. And thanks for watching.